Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely unpack the secret to building a foolproof system for sustainable habit change. We're talking about stripping away the noise, ditching all that motivational fluff, and looking directly at the actual mechanics of how real, lasting transformation happens. So let's dive right in. Be honest for a second. Have you ever sat down on a Sunday night and written out this massive, super ambitious plan to change your entire life starting Monday morning? You tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m., I'm gonna run 5 miles, read 50 pages, and just quit every single bad habit cold turkey, right? We have literally all been there. And, well, we all know exactly how it usually ends. By Thursday, you're back on the couch, feeling like a total failure. Section 1, the willpower trap. Let's look at why big plans fail. So the reason these ambitious overnight plans fail, it isn't a lack of desire at all. It's actually because we fall straight into what we call the willpower trap. These massive plans, they're basically loud, dramatic transformations built on the incredibly fragile sand of willpower alone. And your brain, it simply cannot sustain that level of friction for very long. But the 1% assassin plan is totally different. It is not about those loud transformations. Instead, it's about silent, highly calculated, ridiculously small habits that slowly but surely kill off your weaknesses until there's nothing left but a highly disciplined version of you. To really ground this, let's look at a real-world case study. Meet Nolan. At 19 years old, Nolan was living on complete autopilot. I mean, staying up super late, absolutely hooked on cheap dopamine, with zero direction in life. Then his family suddenly hit a severe financial crisis. He panicked, naturally, and tried to shock his system. He attempted the massive plan, 5 a.m. wake-ups, 6 solid hours of studying, and the result? It lasted exactly 3 days. His brain literally rejected the change because it was just way too much, way too fast. Section 2, the 1% solution, or how to bypass burnout. To actually bypass that biological rejection Nolan faced, we have to root our foundation in Kaizen. Now, this is the ancient Japanese philosophy of continuous 1% improvement. It's a total game changer because it shifts your focus entirely away from that cinematic, overnight transformation. Instead, it forces you to look at making ridiculously small, almost unnoticeable daily progress. It's not about waking up as a totally new person tomorrow. It's simply about being just 1% better than you were today.
But you guys, here is the sheer, jaw-dropping power of the math behind that philosophy. 3,778%. Think about that for a second. If you get just 1% better every single day for 1 year, the cumulative compounding effect doesn't just make you a little bit better. It makes you nearly 38 times better by the end of the year. That right there is the silent, calculated math of the 1% assassin.
Section 3, the 2-minute rule, making it small. Okay, so how do we actually apply this ancient philosophy and mathematical truth to a modern, messy life? Well, you have to make the habit ridiculously small. I'm talking so small it almost feels like a joke. If a habit is so small that it's virtually impossible to fail, your brain just cannot find a logical excuse to skip it. You completely bypass the brain's internal alarm system. When our guy Nolan started his transformation, he didn't study for an hour, he committed to reading just 5 pages a night. When he wanted to get fit, he didn't try to run a marathon, he just put on his running shoes and walked to the mailbox. He was literally proving to his brain, hey, I am the kind of person who shows up. Section 4, the art of habit stacking, building the chain. Once you actually prove you can show up for just 2 minutes, that's when you can begin connecting these foundation habits. And this is exactly how Nolan scaled his routine. Check out this progression. Step 1, put on running shoes. Step 2, walk to the mailbox. Now, this was an already existing, successfully established tiny habit for him. Then, he changed a new one right onto it. Step 3, do 5 knee push-ups immediately after returning from the mailbox. Notice he didn't try to be an elite athlete on day 1. He just stacked one tiny, extremely low friction action right on top of another, making absolutely sure his system was never overwhelmed. This kind of stacking creates what ancient monks called goji. Basically, goji is the practice that perpetuates itself. When you stack habits like this consistently, the repetition actually causes your brain's basal ganglia to take over. That's the part of your brain responsible for motor control and automatic behaviors. Eventually, the whole shebang becomes completely automatic. You're putting your shoes on and knocking out those push-ups before your conscious mind even realizes you've started. Section 5, practice without gaps, surviving the messy days. But let's be real for a minute. What happens when life gets incredibly messy? What happens when you're sick or exhausted or stuck traveling? To survive those days, we turn to muku. This is the ancient teaching that a river might become a trickle during a severe drought, but it never, ever stops flowing. In our modern lives, this translates to a very simple rule: never take a true 0 day. If you're completely exhausted and can't read 50 pages, fine, read 1 page. If you're sick and can't do 50 push-ups, just do 1 single push-up. The volume scales down for sure, but the flow never stops.
So, why does this matter so much? Because you are protecting the neural chain. The 1% assassin knows that a rest day is often just a retreat in disguise. By doing just that 1 push-up or reading that 1 single page, you keep the neural chain completely intact. This is absolutely crucial because it prevents you from reopening negotiations with yourself the next morning. It starves out your excuses and quite literally kills off the weak version of you that wants to quit. Section 6. Becoming the warrior. The identity shift. And that death of the weak self leads us straight to our final stage, where these tiny, seemingly insignificant habits finally forge an entirely new identity. You know, in the mastery of any art, there's a concept called shuhari. The 1% assassin lives in the shu stage. Basically, this means obeying the system perfectly without trying to be creative or changing up the rules. Honestly, you don't need a fancy, complex plan to change your life. You just need a boring, incredibly reliable system that works precisely when you are tired, broke, and totally unmotivated. You just follow the system.
And when you actually follow that system, you experience the exact same shift our case study Nolan did. A year into his journey, transformed into a disciplined guy who provides for his family and keeps his word, he made this incredible realization. He said, "I have no discipline, I've just eliminated the parts of me that wanted to give up." Wow. I mean, that is the ultimate identity shift. It is not about forcing yourself to do hard things through sheer grit. It's about systematically starving your weaknesses until only the warrior remains.
Section 7. The public oath. Executing the plan.
We've seen the math, we've looked at the science, and we've explored the philosophy. Now it's time for execution. What is the smallest, most ridiculous version of your goal? I want you to pick that one keystone habit, and then make a public oath. Declare it to your friends, your family, or hey, drop it in the comments below. Say, I am a person who does this tiny habit every single day for the next 100 days. Making it public triggers your brain's social survival instincts, which makes failure feel like a true threat. So, what is your 1% habit going to be? Stop trying to be perfect, sacrifice the person you were yesterday, and let the warrior be born. Stay sharp and follow the path.